I mean, it's basically twice as good as single-sided tape. The clue's in the name, you know what I mean?
Branch? What you doing there, little bud?
Sitting down to make this video, I had to argue with myself a lot to figure out what sort of approach I wanted for it. I know that this is a difficult topic for a lot of people to understand, so please hear me out to the end before you make any assumptions. Thank you. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of this video, there was a few things that I wanted to address. Am I saying that the various lines that point to Mori being a creep are a mistranslation? No, those are intentionally there. Am I defending the abuse that Mori subjected both Yosano and Dazai to on a serious mental level? No, not in the slightest. Am I denying that he's an antagonist? No. Mori caused the death of both Odasaku and the flag, and put Yosano through a war a girl her age should not have been witnessing. I talk passionately about Mori as a character from a writing standpoint. Do I adore that part of his character? Absolutely. Do I understand that defending him in the way I am could put me in a lot of hot water in the fandom? Definitely. But I feel like a video essay on Mori is really needed in this fandom so people realize that he isn't the creep he's been painted to be in the manga, and for the real reasons, not the ones that glorify the character that he is. To discuss Mori as a character, we'll be going through three main aspects: the inspiration taken from his IRL counterpart's books, his character in the manga and the deeper meaning behind his actions, and finally, his beast counterpart that no one seems to understand too well. Alright, since Mori and Mori have the exact same name somehow, I'll be referring to the author as Rintaro and the character as Mori to avoid confusion. By the way, it occurs to me that I'm pronouncing his name wrong, so I'm very sorry to anyone who's annoyed by that. Mori's inspiration, where I've seen it scattered through many of his stories, is taken from three of them, namely Blackjack, Maihime, aka the Dancing Girl, and of course Vita Sexualis. Discussing relevancy, I'd say that Maihime is probably the most important one for Mori's character. Vita Sexualis is a good outline for his beliefs, and Blackjack had this one-off line with the main character's assistant, an underage girl referred to herself as his wife, and Asagiri and his 3 weed-smoking writer saw that and ran with it. Shaw, dude, I kinda wanna make him like kids now, brah. For sure. Meanwhile, Vita Sexualis was in sort of autobiography on Rintaro's life. In it, he criticized society as a whole, not necessarily the sexual topics as I've seen some people say. However, he does discuss his distaste towards the many women that would approach him in the downright most hilarious ways I've seen. I highly recommend you read Vita Sexualis. Connecting to Mori's character, Rintaro's works were always written in a sort of bored deadpan, and I'm talking the kind you get when you log onto Roblox and find a kid talking about how his dad beats him kind of deadpan. It's crazy. It works for Mori as a character pretty well too, because we know that he has a pretty plain view on society in the ways he talks to Dazai and even Chuya about those beliefs. He doesn't need to sugarcoat when he wants to manipulate someone. The weight of his words already does that for him. Choosing Vita Sexualis to represent Mori's ability was definitely an interesting choice on Asagiri's part. You see, in Vita Sexualis, Rintaro spoke on his own flaws too in compliment to his distaste for society. Vita Sexualis has so many of Rintaro's point of view that it could be considered a piece of his soul. And if the ability and the book have some connection, would it be right to say that even the ability Vita Sexualis is a composition of his flaws and distastes? Vita Sexualis only criticizes Japan under the right of Rintaro's sexual assault. It discusses his experiences with that event and how he saw life after that traumatizing experience, and how he attempted to come to terms with it. It took me a lot of guts to put this into script, but Rin, who basically is carrying this entire video on her back, thankfully convinced me just to go for it because a lot of people need to know about this to understand Rintaro. You see, that assault led to his asexuality. Rintaro openly spoke about his trauma and he was punished for it. Vita Sexualis is Rintaro. It is his fears and his insecurities and the way he despised Japan for what happened to him being brushed off or even denied happening at all. To me, this loathing and this anger ties into Mori fairly well too. First, let's discuss the most important book relating to Mori. What many people don't know is that Maihime is a direct story from Rintaro's life. In it, the main character Toyotaro goes to Germany and falls in love with a dancer named Elise. There are many gruesome scenes about the self-hatred Toyotaro felt being around someone he considers so beautiful and perfect. Moments that are both sweet and heartbreaking, where we see those insecurities come into play in their lives, and a bittersweet ending as well. By the end of the book, Toyotaro is pressured by his bitch-ass co-worker Aizawa to leave Elise and put his job and career first. And eventually, he caves into that pressure, leaving Elise and their unborn child without even a wedding ring. Maihime is one of my favorite stories ever. I came to it long before I read Bungo Stray Dogs, and it really does hold a special place in my heart. But enough about me. Let's get back to our diagram over here. Elise being represented as his wife in Bungo Stray Dogs is a choice that I would have loved if she weren't, a kid. But I can see where Asagiri was coming from here. You see, even in Bungo Stray Dogs, what are the point of Mori's abusive actions? What is the point of him causing the death of the flags and pushing Chuya towards him as a sole guardian? What is the point of him sending Ozasaku on a mission and causing his death, subsequently having Dazai leave the mafia? What is the point of him murdering the old boss of the mafia before he could cause a decision that would be its downfall? Well, that last one must have answered it for you. You see, these actions were a perfectly coordinated chess strategy that secures the throne he has over the mafia. With Chuya devoted to him, he will stop at nothing to protect Mori from anyone that could replace him. With Dazai out of the mafia, the person most likely to have replaced him, the way he replaced his predecessor, is finally out of the picture. With the old boss of the mafia dead, he finally has it. He finally has a job he's wanted. He's finally the boss of the Port Mafia, and indestructibly so. Now back to Rentaro for a second. I mentioned that Maihime is an extract from his life, and that goes for the societal pressure that was put on him from his co-workers and his mother to leave Elise, or really the unnamed German woman, who was 17 while he was 19, having a 2-year age gap, and who he corresponded with for 4 years in between. He had planned on marrying her, but Rentaro ended up caving as well, instead agreeing to an arranged marriage and throwing himself into his job. A job that ate him alive until his death, the same way it's eating Mori. Don't believe me? Look at this art that came with the last 15 manga chapter. This art depicts Mori in all his mafia gear glory, not in the lab coat by the way that we see him in sometimes in this exact manga. He is hollow, he is empty, as if he's been presented as a scarecrow and eaten alive. That devotion to his job, that unresting sense of paranoia that someone will replace him exactly how he replaced his predecessor, that is what makes Mori the perfect depiction of Rentaro's flaws. Now about those flaws, let's get into something a little bit more pressing. Elise is Mori's ability, an ability represented as a little girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, her appearance being the only consistent thing about her through the various arcs we've met her in. Speaking chronologically, the earliest we see Elise is in Yosano's backstory, where she's portrayed as a young adult, likely just a little younger than Mori. After that, we find her in the Zenki Sokoku backstory as a little girl we know her as presently. But what happened in the middle? What caused that drastic change? The answer are the children he abused. It isn't a secret that Elise only became the child we've seen at Mori's side after Yosano. We see Mori state that he admires Yosano's strong will, and the next thing we know, Elise is reflecting that behavior. We see Dazai refusing to accept anything Mori says, expressing bratty, childish behavior to his words. And Elise reflects that later too. But why? Elise is said to be conjured up just the way Mori likes it, and to Fukuzawa, he directly addresses her as his wife. And for the billionth time, it's not a mistranslation. Sit down! This is where Vitus Sexualis comes into play. What was so difficult about naming the ability that is based off of Maihime, and calling it a day? Why did Asagiri choose the book with Mori's guilt and fears and trauma to name the ability? Why, when the ability named Beast Beneath the Moonlight is based off of a story about a man whose insecurities and fears draw him to be eaten alive until he turns into a white tiger? A beast that leaves the man to drown in all those fears for eternity, something Atsushi is afraid of doing. Why, when Rashomon is about a stubborn man who steals the clothes off of a poor woman who steals hair off a dying corpse? And when that woman tells him that she needs to make wigs out of the hair to sell them to survive, he snaps, it's only fair then that he steals the clothes off of her back, reflecting Akutagawa's temper and refusal to abandon the beliefs he has. If Asagiri put so much thought into those abilities just by name, then why would he do the former so carelessly? And what if he didn't? What if, for some crazy reason, Elise is a compilation of the guilt he feels after what he did to those poor children? What if she's the unprocessed weight of his actions that he refuses to feel? In this official art, we see Elise covering Mori's eyes while he's holding a scalpel. This art is showing her hiding his view of the damage he's doing. It's showing her absorbing the guilt of those actions so he doesn't have to. She saw what he was doing to Yosano, and instead of him regretting what he did to her, she becomes that strong-willed girl. She becomes that bratty boy Dazai was deep down. And Elise, she's always by Mori's side. She's always there to remind him of what he did to that little girl that was part of a war, what he did to that boy he considered his son. She is his life partner. She is his wife. But that begs the question, why? Why would Mori choose to present her as a little girl and openly talk about her being his wife? We've established that Mori would do anything for his job, haven't we? We've established that he lies and lies just to make sure every piece of his chessboard is moving according to his own rules. So what's something that he can tell people to push them away? To get them to stop asking questions on why he does what he does? What if he told everyone that Elise is built on his own much darker desire? What if he hid the fact that she's made of everything, all the emotions he is not allowed to feel due to his job? What if Mori lied about his ability? Or rather, instead of lying, hid the whole truth about it? On the surface, most characters in Bungo Stray Dogs, and the readers as well, believe that he's just a creep, and that's working just fine for him, isn't it? People are so weirded out, for lack of a better word, by his character that they don't look into him twice. But I'll delve deeper into that once I start putting the pieces together. For now, let's look into the way Mori treats Elise. Despite saying that she's a wife to him, he treats her like a child, doesn't he? No odd comments, no weird moments that seem too creepy. On the surface, Mori is just role-playing as a father figure for her. Something we see more in the stage plays and in the manga is Mori's open desire to be a father. I personally love the moments where he teases Dazai for his obsession to die and hyping him up like, well, a good dad. Mori, despite how much we hate to admit it, is a father to Dazai. He cried the night he left the mafia. He treated him after various suicide attempts and outright told this boy that he reminds him of himself. He desired to be a father deep down and more than anything, but his job got in the way of that so many times, so he just had to shut out that emotion by kicking Dazai out the port mafia by planning Olusaku's death. He acts like it was just so Dazai wouldn't replace him, but deep down, he needed Dazai gone so he could focus. He, like he did with Fukuzawa, pushed away someone who was getting in the way of his job. Now you might think I'm just defending this guy with random one-off lines and moments that don't seem relevant, but then we see the most crucial part of Mori's character. I could yap for hours about the Beast manga and how people act like it's another story with different people when it's not. If you believe that the characters in Beast are different people from their normal counterparts, then I'm sorry, but you missed the fucking point. The point of the Beast manga is to show what the same people could be under different conditions. It showed what would happen to Akutagawa if he had received the love Atsushi did from the 88, and what could have happened to Atsushi if he didn't. And in that story, the story where Mori is no longer the boss of the port mafia and no longer needs to lie through his teeth to stay alive, where do we find him? In an orphanage, being the father he wanted to be with his ability as a caretaker for the children as well. In that story, Mori has processed his flaws because he has no need to ignore them. He admits that he could not save Dazai, that he wasn't able to be the father for the damaged boy, and for that reason, Elise no longer has to carry that unprocessed guilt for him and remains an adult woman. And what does Mori do to make up for it? He becomes a father to Atsushi that he could never have been for Dazai, his son. Beast Mori and the Mori we know from the main story are the same person. That same person if he wasn't on a pedestal that he needed to deceive everyone to place himself on. And might I add, Mori chose to leave the mafia, faking his death in order to get away from that life with no questions asked. So it's not like he was kicked out and was forced to face music, but instead he wanted an out from the job that was beginning to decay his soul. And since Mori isn't on that pedestal anymore, he does not need to lie and deceive both other people and himself. He doesn't need to push people away. He doesn't need to stop himself from feeling the guilt of his actions, and consequently, he doesn't need Elise to be a child. Sure, if he wanted Elise to be one without that pressure, he could have that, but he doesn't. And since he doesn't want her to be a kid, he doesn't like kids. Also, this isn't me saying that Mori is a good guy, by the way. Mori instead is morally grey, like many BSD villains, including Fyodor and Fuguchi. Two antagonists with good intentions with skewed perspectives. A lot of people might still be doubtful on why. What is the point of all this? Why would Asagiri not just tell us that? Why do we have to thoroughly understand BSD as a whole with all its stage plays and light novels and alternate universes to understand a single background character? Asagiri has said that his writing is for people who need stories like oxygen, and he wants BSD to be that oxygen. I find that really telling because who would read countless light novels and watch hours of stage plays just to get characters in? That's right, people who are autistic. People who breathe stories like oxygen. At the end of the day, the purpose of BSD is to get people to read the various authors' books and understand the characters. Only when you truly understand those authors and their stories will you understand why Nikolai yearns for freedom, why Rimbaud is always cold, why Atsushi despises himself so much and desires to break free of that feeling. And no, I won't elaborate on those because I want you to do it yourself. Asagiri has outright said that he does not consider people who look and understand the stories he writes as his readers. Simply googling any character at all will help you understand them on another level already. Asagiri wants us to read different pieces of media, and it shows by the way you can look at Mori on the surface and see a creep, but tugging at that string you genuinely find a sickening story about a man who's letting his job eat himself alive just to remain in power of his organization. Going out the story, you can still believe that Mori is a pedo, and I wouldn't blame you, but I'd also suggest that you find a manga that doesn't have this much depth because you clearly cannot grasp the larger story that BSD wants to show us. I know it's harsh, but I'm not the only person to bring this topic up. In a fandom full of people who eat each other alive over ships of all things, that bully popular TikTokers into leaving because of a few unfunny jokes, why would anyone speak up about a topic that could have their house on their Twitter timeline in a matter of seconds? I have spoken to so many intelligent people who have read BSD the way I have and agree on the things I've said in this video. And I know it's a hard pill to swallow, but we need to start opening ourselves up to the various much deeper goings on in the manga if we're ever going to understand the story. I don't have much else to say except that I'll be leaving the link to Maihime in the description of this video because it really is worth the read, and that if you're going to put my address on my TL, just make sure you crop out those rusty pipes beside my house because I really don't want to embarrass myself that way. Thank you for watching, and I hope you understand Mori a little better after this video. Alright, wow, I didn't expect to finish this one so soon, to be honest. It's a lot longer than my last video, so yay, it's done. Before I get into anything else, I used clips from the OVA of Maihime. That's by the way lost media right now, but it was found in the Russian dub by Mithlon on Twitter, so thank you so much to him. And now into the video. Jeez, I'm really nervous about posting this one because, you know, people might get upset at me for defending a quote-unquote pedophile, even though he's not a pedophile, and I give you proof that he's not a pedophile. But whatever, people will think what they want to think. Thank you so much to Rin. Rin really did help me out with this video a lot. Rin and I have been talking forever, and she was the one who said, you know what, Cash, go for it. Make the damn video. And I'm making the damn video, and I made the damn video. So thank you to Rin. I love you, Rin, if you're watching this part. There was a part that was pretty hard on some people when I said that you guys shouldn't be in the BSD fandom and you shouldn't be in this manga space if you don't understand characters. Let me put a disclaimer for that. I'm not saying you need to read the books to understand Bungo Stray Dogs. I'm not being one of those annoying adults on Twitter. I'm trying to say, if you're not going to be open-minded about this book that requires a lot of open-mindedness, then maybe choose another fandom, because that's what Bungo Stray Dogs is about. It's about literature stray dogs. It's literature stray dogs! Come on, man! Anyways, so I hope nobody takes that out of context. I mentioned Dazai's plot armor. RIP Dazai's plot armor, you deserve better. And finally, thank you so much once again. Please watch the video before you dox me. I really hope I don't get doxed. I was having like constant panic attacks yesterday as a person with anxiety about, you know, posting this video and accidentally finding my location on my Twitter TL. So don't dox me, please. I'm a sad person. I'm a very sad person. Anyways, thank you so much for watching once again. I'll be back when I want to make the video about Sokoku and its negative impact on the fandom, or the Beast video that, you know, I'm gonna delve into that. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.